Okay, imagine this for a second. Picture a life with two completely different poles.
Yeah.
On one side, you're a kid, a young boy, selling knockoff sunglasses, maybe some trinkets,
Yeah.
on these hot, cracked pavements in Athens.
Yeah, tough neighborhood.
Right, low-income area.
Yeah.
And you're working like sunrise to sunset. Not for extras, but literally so your family has food on the table that night.
A real daily grind for survival.
Exactly. Then picture the other side. Just, what, a handful of years later? You're under the absolute brightest lights in pro sports. You deliver this historic 50-point game in the NBA Finals to win the championship.
It's almost unbelievable, the contrast.
It really is. And that journey, the path between those two extremes, the shadows and the spotlight, it's not just, a nice story. It feels like maybe the most powerful example today of potential just bursting through against odds that seem, well, completely stacked against you, structural odds.
And that transformation, that specific journey, is exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
Our focus is squarely on the path of Giannis Antetokounmpo. We've pulled together insights from our source material, Giannis Antetokounmpo, from Athens shadows to NBA glory, which really maps out this incredible road he took.
So our mission here, for you, the listener, it goes way beyond just looking at stats or trophies.
Right, much deeper.
We want to unpack the underlying structure of how he did it. We're tracing the actual road, psychologically, practically, because that journey arguably tells us so much more than the awards themselves.
Yeah, the how is key.
We need to understand where that intense drive came from, grapple with his identity crisis, being stateless as a kid, and figure out what it really means to overcome being like invisible to the system and then achieve global fame.
Which leads us to the big question framing all of this. And it's relevant not just if you follow basketball, but really for anyone interested in things like immigration, opportunity, what drives people. How did this stateless kid, literally living in the shadows economically, politically in Athens, how did he manage to become this global sports icon and maybe even redefine what we think of as the American dream?
Okay, let's get into it. The beginning feels like the only place to start, where that identity was really forged.
Right. To really grasp the scale of his climb, you first have to understand just how tough his starting point was.
Yeah, the source material throws us right into his early life, the setting. Sepolia in Athens.
And this isn't the Athens you see on postcards, right? Not the Acropolis, not the touristy areas.
No, not at all. The descriptions paint Sepolia as functional but struggling. Low income, narrow streets, kind of winding and crowded.
It's important to really visualize that. It wasn't a passive backdrop. It was an area tourists just didn't go to. And that tells you something.
Yeah, that lack of outside eyes.
Exactly. The buildings are described as, chipped and weary, the shops humble and tired. It's not just scenery. It sets this stage of constant low-level struggle. Survival, that was the daily focus. Not getting ahead, just getting by.
And that environment directly led to this incredibly tough daily routine. The sources really hammer this point. Giannis and his brother Athens, they worked relentlessly, literally from dawn to dusk. And they weren't spending money. They were selling whatever they could find, sunglasses, maybe bootleg DVDs, little trinkets. But the key thing the sources stress is why. Not for fun, but strictly to eat.
And that distinction, it changes everything, doesn't it?
Completely.
When work is directly tied to having food that day, the effort has this intensity, this urgency that someone just earning extra cash can't really comprehend. They were hustling, pure and simple. They learned super early that security, any security, depended entirely on what they could earn that day.
Their own labor.
Their physical effort navigating the streets, it was immediate.
But then, on top of that economic struggle, there was this other layer, this huge structural problem. They were invisible.
Yes. And this is probably the core issue in this first part that might be surprising to some listeners. You have his parents, Charles and Veronica, athletic background themselves, father, a soccer player, mother, a high jumper.
Right.
They'd fled Nigeria years before, looking for a better life in Europe. But just being in Greece didn't automatically mean security or opportunity, not without the right papers.
So they weren't just immigrants struggling financially. They were effectively ghosts in the system.
Yeah.
The documentation is clear. The Antetokounmpos were stateless, invisible.
And think about what that actually means day to day. No passports, no official ID cards, zero long-term security. They were constantly living on the edge, weren't they? One wrong step, one bit of bad luck, and they could face deportation, disaster.
So it wasn't just about money.
Not at all. Connecting this to the bigger picture, That lack of official status dictated everything. Access to stable jobs for the parents. Limited. Decent healthcare, forget it. Full participation in the school system, restricted. And definitely no access to the kind of organized sports programs that kids in other places rely on.
Wow. So the whole foundation of their life was just unstable.
Completely unstable. The only things they could truly count on, as the source puts it quite beautifully, were just love, faith, and the hunger to survive.
That phrase, hunger to survive.
It's literal and metaphorical, isn't it? And that absolute necessity, just securing the family's existence day by day, that becomes the bedrock, the foundation for everything Giannis achieves later. It's not just motivation. It's like an existential need channeled into sheer discipline.
Yeah, you can see how overcoming that huge systemic barrier gives his later talent this weight, this purpose, beyond just winning games.
Absolutely. It sets the stage perfectly. You have this incredible physical potential trapped inside a kid whose family is facing erasure, basically. Political erasure, economic erasure.
It's a stark contrast.
It's a tragic irony, almost. It demanded something spectacular to break through, and that vehicle really could only be something as massive and global as basketball.
And yet, even finding that path, finding basketball, was incredibly unlikely itself. Which takes us right into section 2, doesn't it? The spark.
Yeah, the irony just keeps building when you look at how he actually started playing basketball.
Right, because he had the genes, didn't he? Dad played soccer, mom was a high jumper, athletic family.
Definitely athletic stock. But Giannis, the second youngest of 5 boys, he didn't even touch a basketball seriously until he was nearly 12.
12. In elite sports today, that's practically ancient to be starting out.
It's a massive disadvantage on paper. Plus, in Greece, soccer was everything. Basketball was kind of an afterthought, especially for a kid in his circumstances.
So starting late in a less popular sport, from a background with zero connections to the system, everything suggests he should have just stayed under the radar, invisible.
But somehow the game found him, or maybe he found the game. Our sources point to this small local club, Philiphlidikos.
And the discovery story, it's kind of classic, but with a twist.
Exactly. A coach sees him and his brothers just hanging around a court. But here's the twist you mentioned. What caught the coach's eye wasn't skill. Because, frankly, Giannis had none at that point.
So what was it then?
It was pure potential. The source specifically mentions the way his long limbs glided when he ran. It was his movement, his natural athleticism, sheer biomechanics. The coach saw what he could become, not what he was.
Just raw material.
Extremely raw. The source is really blunt about it. He was awkward, couldn't dribble well, couldn't shoot, didn't have the footwork. He had the frame, but none of the actual basketball skill or understanding yet. He was the definition of a raw project.
But this is where that background, that character forged in Sapolia comes in.
Right. Because he was so far behind technically, it just highlights what he did have in spades. That drive, that relentless drive. And the source stresses this was something harder to teach than, say, a hook shot.
So what did that look like day to day? How did he even begin to catch up?
He was just relentless, obsessive almost. The details in the source material paint a picture of incredible dedication. Staying late after practice, working harder than everyone else. There's this great metaphor used. He soaked in the game like a dry sponge meeting water.
Wow, dry sponge meeting water.
Yeah, picture that. Just total immediate absorption. Because he knew, didn't he? He must have realized the sport was maybe the only way out for his family, the only escape route from that systemic instability. So every practice, every drill, it felt like life or death.
That focus, that sheer necessity, brings us to that one anecdote that just, it hits you, the shared sacrifice. It shows the scarcity so clearly.
Oh, the shoes. Yeah. That image is unforgettable, isn't it?
It really is.
Giannis and Thanasis, they had one pair of basketball shoes between them. One pair. So when one brother was playing or practicing, the other one literally sat on the bench, barefoot, waiting his turn.
Just imagine that. It's not just about poverty. It's a direct obstacle to getting better. They couldn't even practice properly at the same time because they lacked one basic piece of equipment.
A physical barrier to development right there.
And still, they kept showing up. The commitment involved just to be there, dealing with that. It's incredible. We read about him jogging through potentially dangerous areas just to get to the gym.
Practicing sometimes when the lights were out, trying to concentrate while, his stomach was empty, growling with hunger, as the source puts it.
It all connects back, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The athletic development tied directly to that survival instinct from section 1.
Absolutely. This wasn't about future fame or fortune yet. It was pure desperation turned into discipline. That same hustle he used selling trinkets on the street. Now it was focused on perfecting a crossover, on running drills. His talent was being forged under the absolute toughest conditions. It built this inherent resilience.
Yeah, he wasn't just showing up to play. He was building, like you said, an armor of work ethic.
Exactly. And as that armor got stronger and his skills finally started to catch up to those amazing physical gifts, people started noticing. Whispers turned into talk.
This long, raw kid from Sepolia.
Yeah, who moved like a gazelle in water.
Mm.
And eventually, those whispers got loud enough to cross the ocean, which sets up the next massive hurdle,
Right.
the 2013 NBA draft.
Okay, so jumping from playing in Greece's second division, basically obscurity, to the intense spotlight of the NBA draft.
Yeah.
That's a huge leap.
Massive. And in 2013, the NBA scouting world was, understandably, pretty skeptical.
Well, yeah, you can see why, right? If you just looked at the stats, the context.
Yeah.
He's playing in a low-level European league. His numbers weren't exactly jumping off the page.
No, not at all. The source is clear. His stats were not jaw-dropping. He wasn't dominating. He's showing flashes, moments of brilliance, but it was inconsistent. Pure potential.
He was a classic project player. High risk, potentially high reward.
Exactly. And for NBA teams, especially picking in the lottery or mid-first round, a player like that, raw skills, unproven league, is a gamble. A big one. He didn't fit the typical mold of a polished college star ready to contribute immediately.
So it required a team to really look past the present, didn't it? To bet entirely on the future.
It did. And the sources suggest that the Milwaukee Bucks, the team that drafted him, really honed in on those unique physical gifts. The height, the wingspan, the speed, that incredible fluidity, that glide.
The unteachable things.
Precisely. They valued the raw potential over the current lack of polish. They figured, okay, his stats now aren't amazing, but his physical ceiling, it's almost limitless. They basically made a calculated bet. If that same drive, that same hunger born out of necessity in Sepolia could be harnessed in a professional NBA environment.
He could become something special.
Something unprecedented, maybe.
And that bet led to the moment that changed everything for him and his family. The Bucks take Giannis with the 15th overall pick in 2013. On the surface, just another draft pick announcement. But for him,
oh, it was liberation. The sources describe the emotion of that moment when he heard his name called. He just broke down, crying.
and it wasn't just joy, was it? Like, I made it to the NBA joy.
No, it was much heavier than that. It was the release of all that pressure, years of stress about his family's status, their survival. Those tears were for them.
Because that draft pick, that contract, it meant more than basketball. It
Yep.
meant papers, it meant hope.
Exactly right. Suddenly, his basketball career was directly linked to solving his family's decade-long nightmare of being stateless. The draft pick was the key to getting official status, safety, security for his parents, his brothers.
The money, the fame. That was almost secondary at that moment.
Security was everything, and his arrival in the U.S. really highlighted just how different his background was from the typical NBA rookie experience.
Yeah, he shows up wide-eyed, super humble, barely speaks English, totally disconnected from that whole celebrity culture that often surrounds high draft picks.
He still had that scarcity mindset, didn't he? He completely rejected the flashy lifestyle. The source points out one of the first things he did was send most of his paycheck home.
A clear sign of where his priorities still were.
Absolutely. Family survival first. And the stories are legendary now, right? No fancy cars, no expensive clothes.
He rode his bike to practice.
That image just says it all, doesn't it? It wasn't an act, it was just who he was. He was there to work. He threw himself into learning the game at the NBA level, learning English, connecting with teammates, always with that same quiet, intense focus he learned back in Sepolia. He carried the weight of his family's journey into every single thing he did.
It really shows how that background shaped his character, doesn't it? That necessity didn't just build skills, it built resilience, humility.
He refused to let the sudden change in circumstances, the money, the attention, change his core values. And that grounding, that foundation, was crucial for the incredible transformation that came next.
Right, so the foundation was solid. He had the drive, the character. Now, finally, he had the resources, the professional structure to truly unlock all that raw potential.
And that's where we get into Section 4, this period of just exponential growth. It's kind of mind-blowing when you look back at it.
It really is. His physical evolution alone was remarkable. He didn't just mature, he literally kept growing. The source tracks him going from about 6'9" when drafted to his current height of around 6'11".
But it wasn't just height, was it? He added serious muscle, strength, coordination. He went from being this skinny, almost gangly kid,
That gazelle.
yeah, to this incredibly powerful, dominant physical force on the court.
And that physical transformation, it mirrored the mental discipline, didn't it? That same drive he brought from Greece was now being fueled by elite NBA training, nutrition, coaching. You saw the results so quickly. He went from the bench to starter to all-star to MVP multiple times.
That trajectory just proved that the dry sponge mentality was real. He just kept soaking it all up, strategy, weight training, film study, with the same intensity he used back in that dim gym in Philippilikos.
It was like the perfect storm. World-class genetics meeting world-class work ethic, all supercharged by that initial fire of necessity.
And it all led to that peak moment, the championship in 2021, leading the Bucks, a team that hadn't won in 50 years, to the title.
That alone is incredible. It was the ultimate payoff for the risk the Bucks took back in 2013 on that raw kid from Greece.
Absolutely. And then his performance in the deciding game, Game 6 of the finals, the source calls it poetic and perfect.
50 points. 50
Yeah.
in the clinching game of the NBA Finals.
Just think about that number for a second, 50 points. It's this huge quantifiable measure of dominance on the biggest stage. And it stands in such stark contrast to all those years he spent being qualitatively invisible, stateless, uncounted by the system. That 50-point game felt like the ultimate statement. I am here, I am visible, I am permanent.
Wow, that's a powerful way to put it. And the sources really emphasize something crucial here about what makes him a true legend. It's not just the stats, the rings.
No, it's fundamentally about the road he traveled, that journey itself.
Right, that contrast again. The kid selling fake watches in Athens is now, basketball royalty.
Exactly, and that's why his story resonates beyond just sports fans. It's this incredible example of human will just refusing to be contained by systemic barriers. The source material argues he didn't just chase the standard American dream, come to America, get rich.
He did something more.
He kind of redefined it. He showed the dream isn't necessarily about starting with advantages or fitting into the existing system. It can also be about the sheer unwavering force of will needed to break through barriers that are actively trying to keep you out.
His success wasn't built on privilege. It was born directly from overcoming extreme adversity.
Precisely. He etched his name into history, not by forgetting his roots, but by using the memory of that struggle, that invisibility, as fuel. His most powerful engine.
And you still see it, don't you?
Yeah.
He seems grounded by it. He's still the son of Nigerian immigrants. He's still the brother who had to share shoes. He's still connected to that invisible boy from Sepolia.
It's like a loop, isn't it? The hardship from the beginning directly powers the triumphs at the end.
Yeah.
Which ultimately brings us back to that bigger question about invisibility. His story isn't just inspirational, it's a testament, a powerful one, to drive overcoming massive systemic disadvantages. It offers this blueprint, maybe, for what's possible when sheer willpower finally gets a chance, gets an opportunity. Hashtag, tag, outro.
So that really brings us to the end of this incredibly powerful deep dive. We've traced this huge arc, haven't we? From that daily fight just to survive in Sepolia.
Here, the selling on the streets.
All the way to that final triumphant 50-point game. That ultimate statement of visibility, winning the championship.
And the synthesis, when you boil it down, seems pretty stark, pretty clear. Giannis' story is this potent mix, isn't it? On one hand, undeniable genetic gifts, those long limbs, that athleticism the coach first saw. But on the other hand, maybe even more importantly, that relentless personal drive. The kind of drive that perhaps only comes from knowing real hardship, knowing the feeling of sitting barefoot on a bench while your family's future rests on your shoulders.
Yeah. And our main takeaway here, really echoing what the source material suggests, is that greatness, it doesn't always depend on your starting point, does it? It's about how far you're willing to push, how much you're willing to endure and absorb.
Right. Giannis didn't start with the system behind him. He started completely outside it. And he used pure grit, fueled by his family's needs, to basically drag himself and them into the light.
We talked a lot about how he and his family were invisible to the system for so many years. Stateless, no security, just waiting for a break.
Waiting for that one chance, that one person to see the potential.
So maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. Building on that theme of structure and invisibility we've discussed. If Giannis, with all his incredible gifts, still needed that one coach to spot him, and then the massive platform of the NBA to finally break free from being invisible, well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other people out there right now have similar potential, maybe even generational talent?
Yeah.
But they're trapped in those same shadows globally, held back not because they lack talent or drive, but simply because they're facing those same insurmountable barriers, statelessness, poverty, a system that just doesn't see them or won't let them in. How many Giannises are still waiting for their chance?